Today we discuss strikers because Max Kilman is nearly a West Ham player. The medical has been complete, there's no issues there. Personal terms have been agreed between ourselves and Max Kilman. All that's left is a few last minute I's to dot and T's to cross, so plenty of time for it to go wrong. But Lopetegui looks like he's going to get his main man, and fingers crossed Max Kilman will become a West Ham player over the weekend, and that will be our third summer signing done. So with all that said, what next? What has Chef Steidten got up his sleeve, and what will he be cooking up for us West Ham fans, because we're still hungry? Well, the menu says it won't be another centre-back until Nefergerd or Kurt Zouma leaves. I'm happy with that. Makes sense. Next up, we've got Kyle Walker-Peters. We're still working on that deal. And it feels like there's optimism and a desire from both clubs to get this done. Southampton want to cash in on Walker-Peters. He's only got a year left on his contract. We want to sign Kyle Walker-Peters because, well, we need a right back. He's homegrown. He's a good age. He's cheaper than what he should be because of that contract situation. And we like him. So we're trying to sign him. They're trying to sell him. I'm quite confident this one will happen. The only thing that's different compared to a week ago is the Flynn Downs part of it. Because 7 days ago it was a case of we'll sign Walker-Peters, they'll sign Flynn Downs in separate transactions, you know, PSR and all that. Not so sure that part will happen anymore. The interest in Flynn Downs seemed to have quietened down a little bit. Perhaps it's Southampton not so keen to meet our valuation, or it's West Ham's lack of desire to sell Flynn Downs. Maybe it's the fact that the player himself wants to just have a crack at pre-season under Lopetegui. We'll have to wait and see. But I feel confident that Walker-Peters will be joining West Ham and become our fourth summer signing. But the reports say it's then on to a striker. Lopetegui and Tim Steidten will be visiting their short list of players they've got and deciding which one to try and sign to fill that space at West Ham next season. So today, that's what we want to discuss. Not all of them, because we've been linked to quite a few. There's three in particular I do wish to discuss. However, we won't be talking too much about En-Nesyri, because I feel like if that was Lopetegui's main guy, we would have bid by now. We've shown intent with Max Kilman and a determination to get Max Kilman. And I just think if Lopetegui had the same desire to see En-Nesyri as a striker at West Ham next season, we would have already made our move. Perhaps not. Maybe we need to get the centre-back done so we can see what the budget looks like for the remainder of the players that we're looking to bring in. Not so sure we go for En-Nesyri. Strongly linked to Saudi Arabia at the minute. But never know, that could change. But at the minute, not too sure. Now, we were linked to Georgian striker. I've wrote this one down. Georgia's Mikatadze. I think that's it. Scored a few goals in the Euros as well. Now, I've never really seen him play. I can't comment too much. Did well in Belgium. Not so good at Ajax. Gone over to France and done quite well. And I think he's got a personal desire to remain in France. He got linked to us briefly, but I don't think there's anything too concrete in it. However, the three players I do wish to discuss: Memphis Depay, Jhon, Duran and Ivan Toney. They're the three, and they've all been linked to us. This isn't just me sitting here saying, I'd like these players. Well, there is an element of that to it, but other people have linked these players to West Ham, not me. First, I want to start with Duran, Aston Villa striker. Jhon, but he's got the middle bit the wrong way round. Jhon. Jhon Duran? Maybe that's it. Anyway, created headlines last season. He just scored 2 late goals for Aston Villa. So Duran in the 80s. You know, there's lots of headlines going round. I like him. Mentioned him on the channel quite a few times now. There's 3 things I don't like about him though. Let's do that and then we'll do the positives. The 3 things I do not like. His valuation. He was linked to Chelsea earlier on in the window, and he's sort of stated a desire to go to Chelsea. I think he was liking Chelsea's social media posts as well at that point. 50 million was the price tag. Now, a month ago, 2 months ago, when I mentioned him on the channel for the first time, I didn't think he'd be 50 million. I knew he'd be expensive, but not that much. That's just way too much. He's not worth 50 million. So I dislike the valuation. It's not his fault, of course. Villa are looking to cash in on their player that they've only had for 18 months. I get it. But they signed him for 15, 16 million in January 2023. He's just, no, 50 million, big no. Big no for me. The second one is his attitude. A lot of Aston Villa fans have concerns over that part of his game. Now, he is only 20, so he may become more mature, more calmer on the pitch and off the pitch as well. But a lot of Aston Villa fans have queries and concerns over his attitude and whether he's got what it takes to sort of fulfil his potential. So that worries me. And third and last is his hold-up play. I think that's one area of his game when I've watched him. He struggles a little bit. When he's that sole striker, I think sometimes he's not the best at retaining the ball, holding it up, let the team push up and get around him. Because Aston Villa do sit deep. Now, I think Emery has been incredible at Aston Villa and he's a wonderful tactician. Thoroughly enjoy watching Aston Villa under Emery and what he does and how it changes every single game. But they're certainly not pressing from the front and stuff like that. That's not what they've been doing. They've been happy to sit back in a low block at times. It's just that they're good at it and everybody knows what they're doing and they've got a plan that when they do get the ball, they know what to do with it. Now, as part of that, Duran has been the lone striker on a few occasions, not often. Ollie Watkins has been the main man, but with their Conference League campaign as well, Duran has had opportunities. And I just think that's the one aspect of his game I feel could be improved. However, like I said, he is only 20 years old. So let's do the positives now. He's only 20. I think he's brilliant. I really do. While he might struggle with the hold-up play, he is quick, he's big, he's strong, his movement is really good. I think he's one of those trigger-happy strikers that as soon as he's in sight of the goal, I feel like he's taking it on. But I do think he's been quite clinical as well. I've seen him miss a few big chances. What striker hasn't? I've seen the best. Haaland misses the most big chances in the Premier League. So it's not the biggest concern in the world. My rule of thumb is if a striker or an attacking player continues to get into these positions, that's the hardest part. Reading the game, your movement, your timing, I think that's the harder part. If you get all that right, you will score goals, regardless of if your finishing perhaps isn't the best. Whereas if your finishing is really good, but the rest of your game is pretty poor, I think you're going to struggle a little bit to get those opportunities. Duran is somebody that I've enjoyed watching Aston Villa and somebody that I watched, obviously playing second fiddle to Ollie Watkins. And thought, I wonder if we could get him at West Ham and make him the main man. Would he be interested in that? I think he was more interested in a move to Chelsea by the looks of it over the summer. That one's died down a little bit. Would I have him at West Ham? Of course I would. I do, because I think you can work on the things that I'm not so keen on. Well, two of those things you can work on. And I do think with age that would sort itself out anyway. It's just a valuation of 50 million. I think that would be incredible. Now, Express employees said we went for Duran in January. Now, we were never going to get him because they're not blessed with loads of strikers, Aston Villa, and they had the European campaign going at that time as well as pushing for a Champions League spot, and they were an Ollie Watkins injury away from Duran becoming the main man. I can't see this one happening purely due to the valuation, and he'd be one of those players that if we signed, I think he'd maybe be looking for a move away already to a club in the Champions League like Aston Villa. So I'm not too keen on it. I'm keen on the player, but the transfer, not so sure. Now, next up is Memphis Depay, a free agent at the minute. Do you know when you become fans of players, you just really like players? No affiliation to your club or your country whatsoever. You just really like them. Memphis Depay has always been one of those players for me. I was disappointed. I said disappointed. I was a bit annoyed he went to Man United. Didn't work out. It was a bit of a disaster of a transfer for him and the club. Gone over to France at Lyon. Got his career back on track. Scored goals over there. Played plenty of times. Scored goals. Went to Barcelona. It hasn't worked out for him at Barcelona. Didn't work out for him at Barcelona. Went to Atletico. A bit better, played a decent amount of games last season in its 20s, got a handful of goals, but he left. His contract expired, so he's now a free agent. And before the Euros, he basically said, I'm going to focus on the Netherlands and then I'll decide my future. It's the right thing to do, makes sense, and I think he's had a good tournament as well, so any club that might have been interested definitely will be interested. Not sure on the sweatband thing. I don't like players wearing sweatbands because I think it's got to interfere with your heading, right? To having that on your forehead. But never mind. I would absolutely love him. Listen, this is not a signing for the future. He's 30 years old and I don't think he ever fulfilled the potential I thought he had. I thought he'd go on to become one of the best I did. I held him in that high regard back then. I thought, wow, this guy's going to go on and become one of the best. He's never reached those heights, but he's still a fantastic footballer. And I think he's just made a few wrong decisions in his career, like going to Man United and going to Barcelona. But at 30 years old and a free transfer, now I say free, there's no transfer, I'd imagine it'd be very expensive. I'd imagine the signing on fee would be quite significant for this one, because he will know his worth. He will know he's worth a decent bit of money on the market, and nobody's paying a club for him. So I'd imagine he's possibly looking to cash. I could have it wrong, but I'd imagine he's looking to cash in on this move. However, I think it'd be worth it for us. Can play centre forward, has been playing centre forward, but the way Lopetegui has played previously, he doesn't necessarily need an out and out number 9 fox in the box poacher kind of striker. It can be somebody that drops a little bit deeper, gets involved in the play, can be good in the air, because Lopetegui likes his crosses. He needs to be good in the air. Depay's ticking a lot of those boxes for me, but can also play out on the wings as well. Now we have a vacancy. If you look at the starting 11, if you were to just imagine what the 11 looks like now, you're Lopetegui, you're in your office in your porter cabin, you've got your feet up on your IKEA desk, and you're thinking, right, what have I got? I've got Areola, I've got Emerson, I've got Kilman now, I've got Mavropanos, I need a right back. So you've got claret markers, now you've got your first blue one, right? Okay, we need that guy. Might be Kyle Walker-Peters, but there's a vacancy in my starting 11 here. I've got Edson Alvarez, I've got Bowen, I've got Kudus, I've got Paqueta next to Alvarez. I appreciate this is very attacking, just stick with me. I've got a vacancy, and as a striker, I like Antonio, but I could do with someone up there. And I've got a vacancy out on that left-hand side. Again, I can make do. I can play Kudus there if I have to. I can play Guilherme there if I have to. But perhaps ideally, I need somebody out on that left side. Depay can play both. If we bring in another striker or Antonio's in good form, Depay can go out onto that left-hand side. And funnily enough, I think he ticks all the boxes for Lopetegui as that left-sided attacker as well. Somebody that can cut inside on his right foot, can get back and do the defensive side of his game. That's not the best part of Depay. I do think his attacking ability is greater than his defensive one. Not an issue. He's an attacker at the end of the day. But he does get stuck in. He does try hard. He will put in the tackles. I think Depay is a bit of a no-brainer for us. Is it risky? Only because of the finances involved. But as a free transfer, on maybe a 2-year contract or something, I think it's a bit of a no-brainer. Because if we do have a limited budget, which I don't believe those rumours, especially when we're spent, but listen, we don't have an unlimited budget either. I think Depay would be a very wise signing from us, even with that few million quid signing on fee. Let's just say you got a 5 million signing on fee. It's still cheap. You pay that for a loan. You know, Calvin Phillips, I'd imagine, would have cost West Ham 2-3 million as a loan fee to Manchester City. You know, it was 5 million and we negotiated it down. So you'll pay a few million to get somebody in for 1 year. So I think to get Depay in for 2, his wages will be in line with the highest earners at the club as well. I'm okay with that though. If you're going to bring in a striker, unless it's somebody starting out in their early 20s, and if you're bringing in an established striker, which is what Depay is, then you're going to be paying top whack for him. I think this one just makes sense. I'd love to see it happen, but I'm a bit biased because I'm a bit of a Memphis Depay fan as well. Now moving on to Ivan Toney, and this is the last one we're going to discuss today. We've been linked to him quite a bit. Even last season under David Moyes we were linked to Ivan Toney. And it always felt unrealistic. He had his ban, he came back, and within the first handful of games he was straight back in, doing his thing, scoring, assisting. Brentford were looking good again. Tailed off though pretty quickly. I feel like after the first month of him returning, his performances weren't the best anymore. He was still a good player, but the impact was greater than the longevity last season. But I feel like he's very publicly up for sale. Thomas Frank has been on various different broadcasts, Sky Sports, during the season, which he was fantastic on. He spoke about Ivan Toney and basically said, yeah, you can have him, but bring your cheque. During the summer for the Euros, he spoke about Ivan Toney and he said, well, listen, you can have him, but you know he's one of the best goal scorers in the Premier League. What are they worth? That's the kind of money we're talking. Now, Brentford, perhaps more importantly, have already signed Ivan Toney's replacement. They had the deal done in January or whatever for, is it Igor Thiago. They've signed him from Belgium, I think. The first ever Brazilian to play for Brentford. Weird stat for you. There you go. First ever Brazilian to sign for Brentford is Ivan Toney's replacement. 30 million they've spent on him. Now, naturally, you think, oh, there's a bit of pressure to sell Toney. Not so much, because they've just recouped 30 million for Raya, who's obviously joined Arsenal on a permanent transfer. But he's only got 1 year left on his contract, Toney. So there is a pressure there in Brentford. And I think there's a willingness. There's probably a desire from Brentford to sell Ivan Toney as well and get some money in for him rather than walking out in a free. Because I would suggest there's almost no chance of him signing a new deal. He's been very open about wanting to leave Brentford, and I personally think he's done it in the right way. He's told Brentford, it's come out, and whenever he's spoken about it, he's done it with a little bit of tongue-in-cheek, and I know some people see it as disrespectful towards Brentford. Not so much, Mohamed Kudus, I've seen a quote from Kudus earlier, not saying he wants to leave, but basically saying, once I feel like I've completed the challenge, I'm ready for a new one. It's football these days, they have ambition. Do we match Ivan Toney's ambition? I'm not sure we do. I think when he's been speaking about leaving Brentford, he's been referring to the Champions League clubs. But are any of them going to go in for him? I'm not so sure. Obviously, Arsenal have been linked to him, Man United have been linked to him. But he certainly ain't going to Man City anytime soon. Probably not going to Liverpool. I'm not sure Aston Villa would want him, or he'd suit Aston Villa. So the possible destinations for Ivan Toney isn't that great. Newcastle would be one of those ambitious clubs, but A, can they afford him, and B, would he go there and play second fiddle to Alexander Isak? Maybe he would, because Isak's, injury prone. He misses quite a lot of games, so there'd be opportunity. So suddenly you're down at that list. When you're going down the list in the process of elimination, West Ham aren't that far down. You think, oh, maybe there is something here. And I do wonder if we're just monitoring the situation and the lack of bids for Ivan Toney, thinking, hang on a minute, we've got a bit of an opportunity. I think he'd suit us. I do think Ivan Toney would suit us. Homegrown. He's not a young player. He's not somebody we would be selling for a profit in the future. I think this would be, if you sign Toney, I think whatever you pay for him, 40 million, I think that's a fair fee for him. I think, he was tipped up at 70 or something. But like I said, his form last season, his contract, lack of interest. I think his price is now just under that 50 million somewhere. I think you're getting a good player. I think you're almost getting guaranteed success with Ivan Toney. If you sign Toney and you can't make it work, that's whoever's in charge of your team, it's his problem. Because you're getting a damn fine player that can do it in the Premier League. He can score goals, but also I think his creativity gets overlooked a lot of the time as well. I think Brentford have used it very well with having that second striker next to him, whether it be Mbeumo, Wissa, Neil Mopey at times, where he becomes a bit of a target man, Ivan Toney, and the rest play off him. But it works really well. And when we've got players like Kudus and Bowen around the striker, I can see why that profile would actually appeal to West Ham this summer. I think it comes down to price and also willingness from Ivan Toney. Is he interested in the move to West Ham? I can see why we'd want him, but would he want this move, or does he feel like his ambitions are greater than what we can offer? I think that's maybe the truth at the minute. I think he'd maybe rather wait and see what other opportunities come. But if we do approach August and he's still at Brentford and nobody else has gone in for him, I do think the opportunity to buy him is there. The problem is, ideally we want to get as much business as we can done early in the transfer window, and I'm happy with what we've done so far. Kilman, Guilherme, Foderingham, it's 3 players. It was widely reported we want 7, so there's 4 to go. Kyle Walker-Peters could be close. That would be the next guy in. 3 left, and we know what they'll be. Striker, midfielder, winger, centre-back if Agerd or Zuma leave. I feel like I'm quite confident that will be the targets now. I don't know if we can wait this long. we can't really wait around for Ivan Toney to make his mind up. I think we need to know in the next week or so who the striker is. And I say need to know, I don't mean tell us, I mean start making your moves. Lopetegui and Steidten need to decide which striker they want. And if it's Ivan Toney, make your move now and find out. Because they will have been doing work when we've been going after Kilman, when we've been going after Todibo, Kyle Walker-Peters. You'll speak to the player first. We'll suss them out, sound them out, speak to their agent and basically say, are they interested in a move to West Ham before we even bother negotiating with a club and wasting everyone's time? What's the chances? So I think that's what's their way to work on in the next week or so. Steidten, Lopetegui and David Sullivan working out which striker to target. Will it be Ivan Toney? I'm not so sure. My hunch at the minute is it'll be a striker that I haven't mentioned in this video because none of them feel concrete enough for various different reasons. I would love Memphis Depay. I'd be more than happy with Ivan Toney. Unsure on Mikadake, whatever his name is, Mikatadze, is that it? Mikatadze. Him. Unsure on him. En-Nesyri would be good for Lopetegui, but again, I'm not really seeing much of him to sort of decide whether or not I love him. Duran, that would be the curveball. That would be the gamble because it's a lot of money and there's a few concerns, but out of all the players I've mentioned, the potential in Duran I think is big. I think he will be a superb striker for someone as long as his next move, assuming he leaves Aston Villa, his next move must be right. He has to go somewhere that's got the right manager just to ground him a little bit and develop his game because the potential's there and the ability is there as well. I just think he could go on and become a real good striker, but 50 million, I'm not sure about that one. Anyway, there you go. Who do you want? I want to know what striker you want to see at West Ham. Forget price tag. You can have 50 million. You can have a 50 million virtual budget for your striker if you want. Get involved. We're fans. You're allowed to dream and hope of seeing certain people at your football club. It's important. So get involved in the comments. Let me know what striker you'd love to see at West Ham next season. If you've enjoyed this video, please do drop a like on it by clicking thumbs up, subscribing you around here. We'll be back tomorrow. I'll be back tomorrow with a podcast with Frankie. We've done our Euro 2024 quarter-final predictions, guessing who's going through, so check that out if you haven't done already. And I'll be live on Sunday morning at 9 AM. I'll be live on Sunday, so if you're kicking about on Sunday morning with nothing to do, come keep me company in the live chat and we'll discuss Max Kilman, we'll discuss Kyle Walker-Peters and whichever other player we get linked to between now and then. I'll see you soon.